Hello, this is Salome Krell with Nemertes Research. Welcome to our monthly webinar entitled Transforming the Customer Experience Through Digital Transformation, presented by Nemertes Research President and Founder, Robin Garris. This is the third of a three-part series on digital transformation. You will receive an email after this webinar with a replay link to this session. Today's webinar consists of an interactive presentation and moderated Q&A period. To submit a question, please use the control panel on GoToWebinar. If you experience any technical difficulties, please contact webinars@nemertes.com. Upon conclusion of the webinar, you will be presented with a short survey. Please answer the questions to provide feedback on this webinar and content for future webinars. We also ask if you would like to participate in our research. In exchange for your participation, you will receive access to our research. With that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn it over now to Robin.
Great, thanks, Salome, and welcome, everybody. Glad to be here to get to our third of three webinars on digital transformation. And I don't know how many of you have gone to the first two, so I'll do a little bit of a review to get us started, and then we'll go into some of the really fun stuff we've got here today about transforming the customer experience. So I'll start with a quick about Nemertes. We'll go over the research methodology and demographics, as well as looking at the business framework that we've created and validated through our research. We'll look at how companies are making the business case, as well as looking at some of the technologies that are crucial to transforming customer experience. And then, of course, we will go into user awareness adoption, wrap up with some conclusions and recommendations, and talk about what's coming next from Nemertes. Okay, so with that, very quickly, Nemertes is a 15-year-old global IT research and strategic consulting company, and we focus on analyzing the business impact of emerging technologies. So we're not going to be the company that covers every single technology under the sun, but you can see the topics that we cover on the left-hand side there. The research that you're going to see today is kind of a combination of the first two, although there are certainly some some information here from vendor discussions, but it's primarily benchmarks, which is where we go out and talk to IT leaders, actually on the phone with them for an hour to a few hours each, really delving into the the what's and the whys and the wheres. Who are you using? Why? What are you spending? What are your drivers? What are your inhibitors? What are your success stories, and so on. And then we augment that research with electronic surveys of pre-qualified people using a very stringent integrity methodology to make sure that our data is very good. And you can see some of the services that we provide as a company. Our sort of flagship service is a research advisory service where we do quite a few things with both enterprise and vendor clients. We do a lot of different consulting projects. Strategies and roadmaps are probably our biggest area of consulting. We also do vendor and technology assessments, as well as cost models and maturity models. And then we have an annual conference each year called the Navigator 360 Conference, which is always very well received, and people really enjoy attending. Okay, so getting started with the methodology and demographics. We conducted this research from March through June of this year, and we interviewed or surveyed just under 800 individuals. And the cool thing about this research is it was not only IT people, it was also business leaders. So, whenever you talk about digital transformation, you always hear people say, oh, well, the business units are so important. And we really did look into that in this particular research project. So their voice is in this as well. We focused on companies with more than 50 employees in a range of vertical industries, and this was a global study from 12 different countries in 3 regions. And we have, all the breakdowns of all these demographics for anybody who's interested or wants more information on that. But just a couple of quick charts. The size on the right-hand side by the number of employees, you can see it's pretty decent distribution of small, mid-size, and large organizations. The biggest group being that mid-size from 250 to 2,500 employees. But quite a few large companies too, when you consider how many large companies in a pie, are really, in the overall demographic globally. This is a pretty, heavy weighting on large companies as well. And we have a mixture of companies, B2B, B2C, and some that do both as well. All right, and also a range of industries, as I mentioned before. So I will start with our slide that we've given many times, and for those of you who have been on the call on the previous two webinars, I apologize for the repeat, but I guess it's always good to have a refresher. I just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page when we're talking about digital transformation. What do we really mean here? And when we look at digital transformation, we always start with it being the innovative application of a specific technology. Now, that technology could be any number of technologies. It could be something you already have in your company. Maybe it's something in collaboration or cloud or mobility, and you're just applying it in a different way. Or, maybe it's something brand new, like artificial intelligence or virtual reality, which we'll talk about AI a little bit later. Anyway, you start using this technology in a new way, and the gear starts turning, and it turns the next gear, which once the technology starts taking hold, you typically see an improvement or creation of a process, a product, or an experience. So that could be, a car telling you what's wrong because, it's got some automation in it, and it's going to schedule a service call for you because it's linked to your calendar, and at some point, of course, it'll drive itself to the service station. It could be more internal facing, like, sensors versus people monitoring remote oil rigs. That goes to, employee loyalty, goes to safety, goes to reducing costs. It could be employees simply using digital whiteboards or video or other collaborative technologies to meet and make quick decisions rather than hopping on an airplane. Insurance claims filed via a phone, a mobile phone, with a photo and electronic form rather than having to wait for an adjuster to come out, speeds the whole process and reduces costs for the insurance company, and it also improves the customer experience because you're getting things done quicker and taking less time off work and so on. But anyway, so as the gears continue to turn, the ultimate thing that must happen in a digital transformation is that you have to be able to drive value. We've identified value and validated this with our research in 5 different buckets: grow revenue, improve customer experience, which is what we're going to be talking about today, reducing costs, boosting employee loyalty and retention, and differentiating competitively. So, the arrows here certainly signify motion of the gears. One leads to the other, but they also signify speed. And as we did this research, we definitely found that speed was important, that organizations, pretty much said that they had to show some sort of improvement or validation of the investment within 6 months. So 6 months is a very important and critical time frame to keep in mind as you're doing any digital transformation initiative. You want to be able to show value in 6 months. Maybe the entire project is not done in 6 months, but you have to have those checkpoints to say, okay, we know this is an 18-month project. Here's where we are today. Here's the improvement that we've made. Here's what it means to the company. Otherwise, the stakeholders are going to get a little impatient. So as far as digital transformation itself goes, about 3/4 of organizations today either have or are planning to have a digital transformation strategy by the end of 2018. The problem, of course, with these figures that you see in the pie chart is that only 1/3 have an enterprise-wide digital transformation strategy, and you really want to go enterprise-wide with any digital transformation initiative or strategy that you put in place. You don't want to be in silos. You don't want different business units to be repeating and replicating what the other groups are doing. You don't want to lose your buying power because you're not all, coordinated as to what you're doing next. You just really, in order to really be effective in a digital transformation, you need the whole company aware of what's going on. Now, granted, some of the projects themselves could be applicable to specific silos, but you might take certain pieces of the development or the technology or the process and apply them elsewhere. So enterprise-wide is really important, and that certainly was where a lot of our success group fell into place. So about 23% of the companies that participated in this research fell into our success classification, where we looked at a bunch of different data points, applied a point structure to it, and any company that got greater than 85% on the total points, we put into a success group, and that came to about 23%. So these are, companies who, some of it was subjective. We asked them to rate their success in both IT and digital transformation. We looked at all kinds of factors as to what they were doing, how many projects were successful, and so on. So you'll see some data here on the success classification. So let's jump into the business framework that we have created here for digital transformation. So again, that successful group, this is what we're looking at here. Among the companies that were really successful with their digital transformation goals, we did say, well, first of all, what are your goals? And you can see that the top goal was increasing revenue, and that was what our last webinar was on. And the first one, by the way, was an overall primer on digital transformation, where we looked at all different factors about organizational structure, budgets, and technologies. So those are both on our website if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the overall view of digital transformation from our research, and then drilling down into increasing revenue. Today we're drilling down into improving customer experience, which is the second highest business goal that the organizations set for their digital transformation initiatives. So we created a framework that you might remember from seeing in the last webinar, but this is specific to customer experience this time. So the business goal itself, it's improving customer experience. Well, how are you going to do that? We looked at a couple different catalysts that help, that basically enable companies to improve their customer experience. It could be shortening the response time for your customers to get what they need. It could be providing them with information to help with a buying decision, or simply creating a community, doing some crowdsourcing. Those are some of the catalysts we saw for improving customer experience. And then we provided all of the participants of this research with a list of some of the more leading technologies, more innovative technologies, and asked, okay, what are you using to help improve that customer experience for the particular digital transformation initiatives you're involved in right now? And then we looked at the really important thing, in my opinion, which is the value metric. Well, how are you measuring success? It's great to say, hey, I've got this goal of improving customer experience, and I'm going to really help provide our customers with information so that they can make a buying decision. And we're going to use some AI and some contact center channels, and maybe even some robotics, or some voice analytics here. Pick your technology. But if you can't measure success, none of that really matters. You have to be able to show what was the before and after. How did you succeed in this whole project? So when we look at the value metrics for customer experience, again, a very important area, we see organizations measuring their customer satisfaction score, and that could be a bunch of different ways. It could be in-call or post-call, and it could be looking at the sentiment analysis. So were the customers happy? Were they frustrated? What was the sentiment when they got off the phone or during the call? Customer effort score, how hard was it to get what you needed? Simply rating your experience, thumbs up, thumbs down, or 1 to 5 stars. Net promoter score, which is of course much more detailed and complex, but are you going to recommend us or not? From a 1 to 10 scale, what's your likelihood of recommending us to a peer? And then even transactional net promoter score, so what's happening in this particular transaction. And then, customer retention is another one. So that's a key one. And that's actually in our contact center research was really the number one, value metric that companies rated to determine whether their contact center itself was a success or not. How many customers are continuing their relationship after a specific interaction? The number of customers. So, specifically with digital transformation, it's important to say, okay, I want to, hopefully you're going to be increasing your number of customers. So what was that change? What are the before and after metrics? And in fact, how can you tie any new customers to an experience source? What did they come because of this? It's really important to do that, just so that you know whether an initiative is working or whether they're coming to you from some other source or some other reason. Number of complaints. Well, hopefully those complaints are going down. So, if a customer experience initiative or any sort of change you might be making to your contact center are going well, those complaints should be decreasing. If they're not, well, you need to make some other changes because whatever you're doing isn't working. But if you don't have the metrics, you really don't know. So all these metrics really go toward analytics. It's such an underlying important technology for anything with digital transformation. And then finally, we've got sales improvement. So will there be an overall change or improvement in some of the sales figures, number of opportunities, number of leads, moving through the pipeline faster? And I just, if overall, if the customer experience is good, then sales should be increasing, and all the sales processes should also be improving. The other thing that we did as part of this framework was we created a technology heat map for each one of those goals. So you can see on the top of this box here, we've got improved customer experience as a goal, and we have one of these for each one of the areas, increasing revenue, reducing costs, etc. And red is hot, blue is cool, so you can see some of the areas that are really important for each one of those catalysts, improving response time, information for buying decisions, and creating a community. Analytics, contact center channels, collaboration, digital marketing, social media, digital workplace technologies, AI, those are some of the more hot technologies that customers cited as what they really needed to make their customer experience better. So what we did then was we went through each one of these catalysts and we actually measured what was happening. So you can see in reducing response time, about 2/3 of the organizations that participated in the research had improved their response time, and 43% CSAT score increase for 66% of the companies. So they were able to boost their CSAT scores by 43% because of reducing response time. And they also were able to see about a 31% improvement in customer retention. That was for about half of the companies. So you can see the technologies specific to reducing response time are the contact center channels. So, okay, if I can reach people in more ways and really get to them in whatever way they need to, to be handled, or whatever works for them, that's going to improve the response time. Also, on my back end, I might be able to, go between channels to get the answer more quickly as well. So if a web chat isn't working, if I can escalate that to a video real quickly and get the answer, show them how to do something or how to fix something, that's going to improve that response time and also make them a happier customer. Analytics, we were just talking about, you need to know what's working and what's not, and then, what to do about it and why maybe. And then collaboration is the third top one. So in some cases, that's collaboration with your customers, so that enabling them to see present status of their account team, for example, maybe even extending the capability of chatting into your internal collaboration system. We've seen some companies do that with high value customers. Or it could also be, it could also be internal. So I get a call and I need to collaborate with some people internally who may or may not be in the contact center, but I have tools at my disposal to do that. So, and it may not even be contact center related. It may very well be just a customer service issue, or it may be a sales issue. Like, okay, we have an existing customer that wants to do something new with us. So if we're able to bring them in over video conferencing or do some other collaborative technologies with them to help close that sale, it's not even contact center related. It's more about being able to use the right technologies to get them to buy more with us, to be a bigger, better customer. So a couple case studies I have in here for each one of these catalysts. One is Disney, and I kind of joke here about fast food, but they're just kind of making food faster. So the project, for those of you who are Disney people, they had an addition to the My Disney Experience application. This is sort of the application that you can use to plan your visit if you're going to Disney World, whether it's hotel or restaurant or tickets, whatever. And there's an app on your mobile device. So if you're walking around the park, you can now order your food remotely from restaurants. And for those of you who have been there and know how the lines can be, that's a really good feature, because you don't want to spend, a good chunk of your day just standing in line waiting not only for rides, but also to order food. So you can, order your food, pay in advance, and then notify the restaurant when you arrive. So I have on my mobile device, all right, I'm going to be here in about 5 minutes, and I can let the restaurant know so they can start start preparing my order. So, they use analytics to look at, okay, how well is this working? Where are people in the park? What kind of food are they ordering? How can we prepare better? Obviously, it's a mobile app. And moving forward, although I do not believe they do this today, location tracking is also potential. If you enable that on your mobile device to say, okay, I don't even have to remember now. Okay, if I want to order my food and pay for it now, I know I'm going on a ride. I might be excited after the ride. I don't want to have to remember to punch in, oh, I'm here. Location tracking shows that, okay, they're within 5 minutes of the restaurant. Let's start preparing that food. And then it'll be ready when they get there. You get a text on your phone saying, your order's ready at this window. So now you've reduced your time in line, typically by about 5 to 20 minutes, depending upon the time of day in the restaurant and so on. All right, another area, another catalyst is and this is probably the biggest one, just providing information to help with the buying decision. So 65% of the companies in this research were able to do that. 37% said that they were able to increase, there was a 37% increase in upsell revenue for 32% of the companies. And then there was a 29% improvement in customer retention because of being able to give them that additional information for 55% of companies. So, if they weren't able to get that information, they potentially would have left the company. And again, we've got some of the same hot technologies here, but different order, so you've got the analytics on top because, you really do need to know what do they need, how can I deliver that, and how are we doing it, providing this information? And then, really the same sort of reasons for contact center channels and collaboration as well. One of the really good case studies we've gotten from this one is a wedding attire retailer, and they had just run a voice-only contact center and added web chat to the customer service capabilities. And the goal was just really to give customers another option with communicating, for communicating with the company itself. So they were not expecting any increase in, volume or anything. Just really looked at it more as a customer service. Well, if our customers would rather talk to us on chat, if they're online or something, we would just want to give them that option. Let's enable this. And so it was really the technologies in play here were a new contact center solution and obviously a new channel, which was web chat. The outcome was something that they did not expect. They actually were able to reach an entirely new demographic that they had not reached before. They, in the past, with the voice-only contact center channel, they really didn't reach the 18 to 25 age bracket. And by adding web chat, now this age range was actually calling in or connecting via web chat, and the contact center agents who had an upsell goal, who always have had upsell goals that they just did through the voice only, were actually able to see about a 75% improvement in their sales upsell just because of this new demographic coming in. So it was a huge improvement there, as far as increasing revenue. But more importantly, it also improved that customer experience. So now new ways to, get to the company and, improve that whole experience that you can, and with more channels coming, being able to escalate into a video or a screen share to, maybe show a bracelet or a necklace or a pair of shoes will increase that even further. And then the last catalyst that we talked about in the framework was creating a community. We saw about 64% having created a community, 46% growth in upsell revenue for almost 2/3 of companies, and a 36% decrease in complaints for about 20%, 21% of the companies. And here, we still saw contact center channels as being very important to get the word out about the community, to be able to respond to questions and comments. But of course, you also need digital marketing here. You need to be able to send out, to get the word out through all sorts of digital channels that you actually have this community, and then social media to actually have the platform for the community, and even use other social media tools beyond the platform to again spread the word. So sort of social media and digital marketing work hand in hand. A couple of interesting case studies. Lego is an interesting one in this case, where they had a project for customers to submit new product designs for Lego, and the crowdsourcing community actually voted on the products, which helped Lego test their demand for each of these products. So it was a great, make a contest out of it. It was a great marketing initiative to get people to look online and vote on what product they liked. And, the goal was really to increase that customer interest and loyalty by giving them a 1%, that's not loyalty, that should actually be royalty, a 1% royalty on net revenue if their product gets the most votes and moves to production. So there was a real incentive there for customers. And it also they wanted to create a community to help with product testing moving forward, new ideas coming in. It's a great way to really get customers engaged. So the technologies, of course, were a crowdsourcing platform, and the outcome just to the ability to increase the number of products sold and improve the customer engagement. Another one that was another kind of interesting consumer type case study was Razorfish for McDonald's in Germany. They had created a My Burger campaign to celebrate the 40th anniversary of McDonald's in Germany, and they encouraged online members to create the first crowdsourced burger. So community members were able to come in and use this burger building tool to invent and name their online burgers. And then they also used marketing tools that were provided to generate votes and interest. So it was really, cool, creative way for people to go in there and get their own burger going and really market it out to the public and the crowdsourcing community. And in doing that in and of itself, it sort of it grew that whole crowdsourcing community just from people hearing about it. So you can see that they, of course, were using the digital marketing tools as well as the crowdsourcing platform, but the outcome was unreal. 7 million page impressions, there were 45,000 new burgers created in 7 days with this. So, it's crazy. And, 1.5 million people voting for their favorites. So it was really kind of a cool way to not only, to celebrate the anniversary of McDonald's in Germany, but to get people really engaged and involved, and also give, the company some feedback as to what people were looking for. Okay, so with that, let's go to making the business case. And as I start with that, I just want to point out some of our principles that we have developed and validated through our research on digital transformation. And this, again, I've talked about in previous sessions, but again, an important thing to look at when you're considering a digital transformation strategy. You really want to know, what are your guiding principles? What are you really trying to do with digital transformation overall? And not all of these are going to apply to every company. Typically, we see companies looking at 1 to 2 to 4, kind of 1 to 4 range, typically applied to any given company on average. But data has value. That's where companies try to monetize the data that they capture. It might be on products, it might be on purchasing habits, on customers, and they're able to make money on that, but gather the data in some way that's basically free. Subscription economy, that's where we're moving to, and everything as a service. Strategic use of free, that's where companies are shifting to delivering certain elements of what they offer for free in order to get information that they can monetize. So Instagram gives me free space to store my photos or to look at my photos, but it's also going to take the information about what kind of photos I look at and deliver ads that are relative to what I'm doing. The value of customers, so companies shifting from we sell X to we deliver customer service around X. Amazon's probably a good example of that. Crowdsourcing, just companies proactively providing the platform for crowdsourcing, like the ones we just talked about. API economy, that's where companies are moving from providers of services to more integrators, so like a Kayak or Trivago, the travel sites that integrate a bunch of other travel sites and make life easier for customers. Extreme personalization, where companies move from a one-size-fits-all delivery model to letting customers personalize various aspects of their purchase. Create your own car, create your own gym shoe, create your own jeans, whatever. And then continuous delivery, which is where companies really no longer offer quarterly or annual upgrades. They're doing that pretty much ongoing without you even noticing. So keep those principles in mind as we go to building the business case, because that's really where you want to start. And in the example I'm going to show you, I'm looking at a crowdsourcing principle. So that's I really want to do some crowdsourcing, and I think it's got some good potential benefit for our company. So great. I'm going to look at this framework that we've already talked about here, and just kind of highlight what I'm looking at. Well, I'm going to try to improve the customer experience through creating a community, and I'm going to measure CSAT. I'm also going to measure a couple other things that aren't on here because it's relative to my company. But my bottom line here is that I think crowdsourcing can reduce costs and improve the quality of customer support. So one of the other business goals, of course, is reducing costs. So this this crowdsourcing example could certainly apply as well to the other business goal of reducing costs. And that's very common, that you could have a digital transformation initiative that crosses over multiple business goals. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to define the value metrics that I'm going to be looking at. So you can see that what I have here on the left-hand side in the first column is the percentage of customers, customer assistance requests resolved prior to reaching customer support. And I think the crowdsourcing might be able to help me resolve some of my, requests, let my customers help each other. And right now, I'm not doing any of that today, but you can see going across the right-hand side, I'm estimating maybe 5% within 30 days, 10% within 60 days, and so on. But my important number there at the 6-month mark is 35% of my customer assistance requests, I think, can be handled over crowdsourcing from the research I've done. Support costs per customer. Well, today they're $10 per customer. I think that over time I can really get those reduced quite a bit. By about 30%. And then my customer satisfaction ratings today are at 6.2. I think by offering this whole community to my customers, I can really increase that score, up to maybe an 8.2 by the end of 6 months, which is about a 32% increase. Now I have to look at costs. And again, keep in mind that 6-month rule, so I have to think about all the different things I might need, my infrastructure, development, all my monitoring metrics to do my analytics, all the staffing that I might need, digital marketing, consulting. That's where Nemertes always comes in to help out. But this is kind of, okay, great. So I think I'm probably going to need about $1 million for this particular project. And we have other examples of these business cases in the last webinar that we did as well for increasing revenue. So you then just go and deliver your ask. So I might say to some stakeholders, I can reduce the workload on our support staff by 35%, reduce the per customer support cost by 30%, and increase customer satisfaction ratings by 32%. So this all sounds great. The person on the other end asking to write the check might say, okay, great, what do you need from me? Well, I need 6 months and an investment of about $1 million. And those numbers might be pretty compelling to make that happen. Okay, so what are some of the technologies that we see, really important here? Analytics, contact center, social media, collaboration, artificial intelligence, those are some of the big ones. You can see some of the definitions here. I don't think I need to go into too much detail about those because I've got a lot more interesting data coming up, but those are some of the key ones that we really see as enabling technologies. And you can see here some of the service providers as well. So you've got the analytics companies, and believe me, these are just some. There are dozens and hundreds in some cases of providers in all of these areas of analytics and contact centers, social media. They're all over. And then you not only the public social media, but you've got enterprise social media as well. You've got collaboration technologies and also artificial intelligence as well. I've highlighted some of the top artificial intelligence, and I've got detailed, breakdowns of artificial intelligence in the previous webinar. But it's important to note there are so many startups right now. There's going to be a lot of consolidation in this industry moving forward. So I'm getting a little bit more specific into customer experience and even contact center because, when you think about customer experience, contact center is probably the leading, technology area that you have to focus on to improve that customer experience. So I already had sort of alluded to this, but when we ask them what they measure specifically to track contact center success, it's customer retention. That's the top one, followed by in-call monitoring. So what's happening during this call? What can it used to be only after call monitoring. Now it's like during the call. Is there anything I can do as a supervisor during this call to turn this call around if it's a bad call? Or if it's a call where this is going to be a big sale that I can, figure out through some voice analytics potentially that, okay, my agent might be talking too much. We need to just get a pop-up on the screen to say, ask for the sale now, those types of things. So in-call monitoring is becoming more and more prevalent. Operational costs actually came up as well. So it's not just about, the experience in the surveys and the, the customer attention, but it's about how efficiently are we running this contact center? Because, we don't want to be too lean and not invest enough money in it, but we also don't want to be wasteful and spend too much money and use old technology that's extremely expensive to operate and to replace and so on. So operational costs are actually really important as far as a measure of contact center success as well. So what are some of the additional technologies? Like we all know that, when people are in the contact center, they're using telecom, they're using regular, PSTN telephony, they're using email, they might be using some chat, but there are other things that are really emerging, other technologies that are really emerging in the contact center. CRM is one of the big ones. You can see now that about 22% are using, but quite a few planning and evaluating. And when we correlated this with success, this was one of the areas that, correlated with success. And some of these data points, by the way, that I'm giving you on the contact center are actually not from the digital transformation research methodology that you saw earlier. They're actually from our contact center and customer engagement research study, which has a separate set of demographics, but it's about 223 companies, in this case also global. So CRM features and capabilities are definitely driving the usage. So why do you want to bring CRM into the contact center? Well, 44% said it's because of the features that CRM offers. Others say it's just adding contact center functionality. So when people call in, I can look up their history. I can, see what's happened with them before, what they've purchased before, what their experience may have been before, who they've talked to. I can see all of that. And also, probably the biggest thing, 58% said what's really driving their use is what the vendors are doing. They actually have a roadmap that's compelling, and they don't want to miss out on this. They can see where the potential comes. So, just having knowledge of those vendor roadmaps is important. And then we've got team chat is another area we're starting to see emerging in the contact center, about 18% now, but look at all those that are evaluating right now or planning for the next 2 years, or well, by the end of this year and by the end of 2018, almost 20% evaluating. Only a half of a percentage point right now have considered and rejected using team chat in the contact center. The biggest bulk there, about a quarter, just have not even considered it yet. They don't have any plans because they haven't considered it, not because they've rejected it. So this also correlates with success in the contact center. And when we look at the specific, team chat apps, sometimes there's so many different, terms for team collaboration or team chat. It's crazy. We hear it called team chat, persistent chat, team messaging, team collaboration, work stream communications, all the same thing. And, we're seeing about more than a third using these applications in their organizations overall, not just contact center specifically, but overall in their organizations. So, this would be like Cisco Spark, Microsoft Teams, Slack, Ring Central Glip, like all those types of technologies and services that are out there, many more as well. But persistent chat spaces and rooms, definitely optimized for mobile. There's usually a freemium model that you upgrade, very extensible, almost always cloud delivered. You can bundle or integrate a lot of UC functions, and it's rapidly evolving to become more than chat. Like you think about Cisco Spark, for example, integrating the Spark board in, that makes that a very useful app. And we really see team collaboration overall kind of the next phase of unified communications and collaboration. So, to be able to use this in the contact center and have these channels, depending upon maybe products or customer types, whatever you need to do in a contact center is really offers some potential there. How are organizations using team collaboration? Agent to supervisor is the most common that we see, followed by agent to agent, agent to back office, and then finally agent to customer. I would imagine over time, as team collaboration becomes more widespread, the agent to customer is going to go up from that 19% number. That's a very good way to communicate and keep channels open with customers. Now, artificial intelligence is another area we hear a lot of talk about in the contact center. If you believed everything you read, you would think that 90% of companies are already using AI in the contact center. You can see only about 9% are doing something like that right now. You do have, another, quarter or so evaluating, a little more than a quarter evaluating or planning for 2018. And this also correlates with success. Primarily, we're seeing more larger companies do this than the other size bands. But what do we really mean by this? I mean, this could be, this is just some examples. There's so many different things that companies can do with artificial intelligence in the contact center. Machine learning is a very common one, just basically building a knowledge base from that experience rather than having to program an application. So you learn what customers do, for example, and how often they might call to predict what might happen moving forward. So, it's a storm. We're probably going to get a call from this customer, and here's how we're going to handle it because, we know that this is going to happen whether there's a power outage or not, that type of thing. Natural language processing, so this is just being able to interact, not using the robotic language that we've heard in years past, but using natural language. I think one good example of that is American Airlines. There's other airlines who do this too. It's sort of like a person. It sounds like your butler, concierge type person who answers the phone. Doesn't sound robotic, tries to sound okay, using natural language and to route calls and possibly help, depending upon the issue. If you feel that you can talk and I want to find out about changing this flight, you can talk in normal language and not have to be shouting at the phone, and the bot behind it is, sort of responding in language you're familiar with, you might really be able to accomplish something. I think those are still pretty new, and I think more often than not, people get a little frustrated with those and just keep saying agent, want to just talk to a live human. But I think over time, they will definitely improve. Sentiment analysis is another good one. I think a really important one for the contact center. That's where you do a lot of, computational analysis and identification of opinions so that you can get what people's attitudes are toward whatever you're trying to do, if it's selling a product or making some sort of statement or having some sort of interaction. It can tell you that when customers are using certain words or maybe their tone of voice, it might indicate anger, and that can give you some screen pops to say, okay, route this call right now to a supervisor, or right now you need to say these words. We've learned from past when someone uses these kinds of words or has this tone of voice or is yelling, etc. So those are just some examples of how we see companies using AI in the contact center today. We also see organizations using bots in the contact center, only about 8.2% right now, but again, a lot planning and evaluating. If you add using, planning, evaluating, it's about a quarter. Again, more large and mid-sized than small, and those are also correlating with success. One of the things that we asked about in the digital transformation research about virtual personal assistants is, how successful are these? If you're using a bot, is it improving customer satisfaction, decreasing it because people get frustrated, or it just kind of depends on the interaction? Going into this, I actually thought depends on the interaction would be the biggest chunk, but people really believe that this is improving customer satisfaction. And indeed, I think it does if you stick with simple, tasks. So if you can start with just getting quick answers for customers. What's your address? You don't need a human to do that. The bot can find that. When will an upgrade be available to your product? Again, that could be something that's right in the knowledge base that the bot can send out. When can I expect delivery? What are the rules that I need to follow? Those types of things bots are great for, and that's where you do improve customer satisfaction because you don't have to wait for a person maybe on hold or call in and have it take longer. But it gets more interesting when you get to some of these newer areas like intelligent routing. So if I'm asking a question that's beyond the bot's scope of knowledge, the bot can say, well, hold on, let me get you help on that question, and can route me by something that it already knows about me. Maybe it's my geography by my IP address. Maybe it's the product type because I asked a question about a product, but it's something that it knows from that interaction. Moving forward, though, it'll learn. The bot will learn. So now it can not only say, yeah, let me get you help on that question, it can look in the knowledge base and see that the last time I called about this issue, I talked to John, and I gave him 5 stars. I thought he was great. So the bot's going to route me right to John again because I had that good satisfaction with him. John now can answer, look at my context, hopefully, and see that we talked before and maybe even remember a little bit about the conversation and hopefully get things resolved. Another area that we see in the contact center is integration with Internet of Things. So again, a smaller percentage here even of the other two, only about 6% using now, but certainly more planning and evaluating this area as well. Mid-size and large companies are the most prevalent. Large isn't quite as far out as mid-size in this one. Also correlating with success. So some examples of using IoT, I think one of the ones we hear the most about are sensors, wearable sensors. So in telemedicine, you can send data to a nurse-staffed contact center, and if some numbers come back weird or there's a problem, people wearing Holter monitors or something, if a heart rate comes back and it's not right, the nurse or a doctor can call you, or if it's nothing too serious, you might get an email or an SMS. It just kind of depends on what's going on there. Smart cars, you can have cars connected to apps wirelessly, of course, and maybe a diagnostic app that's going to be run regularly shows that it's time for an oil change or something. And the app sends a notification to the dealership, and the dealership contact center can call you or email you or whatever communications you've set up to schedule that appointment. And then smart homes is another one. So maybe because of an IoT sensor that's on your HVAC system, it can see that, boy, your system's not working efficiently. Maybe it needs a recharge. And it can send that data of what's going on to the manufacturer contact center. The contact center can reach out and say, you know what, we think your unit's running, taking a lot more energy than it should be taking right now. We think you might need a recharge. Would you like to schedule a service call before, your air conditioning goes out on a 95-degree day? And then when we look at IoT, we did ask what their primary driver was for IoT, just overall, not in the contact center necessarily, but just overall for IoT. And improving customer experience is actually by far the biggest driver for Internet of Things, followed by driving revenue and reducing costs. So if you just kind of look at the the drivers that we talked about earlier, there's a big link here between IoT and improving customer experience. Okay, one other thing that you really want to be aware of as you're going into digital transformation initiatives that focus on customer experience is the whole topic of user awareness and adoption. I have done a lot of different sessions and seminars and training in user awareness and adoption. It's something I really believe strongly in, that we need to do a better job in IT with handling this. It's basically just making sure that within IT, you're marketing the technology. So why should I use this technology? That's more the marketing side. I don't care how I should use it or anything else beyond that, but why should I use it? And that's, I think, one of the big reasons why people don't use technologies that we deliver in IT, whether it's a customer or whether it's an employee. First of all, they may not even know it exists. So part of it's just awareness. Hey, this is coming out, but that's not enough. You need to explain why they should. What's the value they're going to get out of using this technology? Why should they spend a second of their brain space even looking at it and thinking about it? Is it going to save them time? Is it going to give them more information? Is it going to somehow reduce their costs? Why should they look at this technology? And then it gets to the training. Okay, how do I use this technology? Now, training may be very complex if it's a complex application, but these days the movement is, of course, towards simplicity. So training may just be watching a quick video, or maybe it's completely intuitive and you don't need any separate training. You kind of train yourself as you start navigating through the application. And then looking at adoption. So are people using this technology? What was our baseline beforehand, and where are we today? So getting back to that analytics, those measurements. What are we seeing today? How did it improve after our marketing initiative? And what else can I do with this technology moving forward? How else can I make more use out of this technology? So really, this just kind of gives you a little bit of background of why it's important, and why should employees, and I would say by extension customers, break these old habits. So either way, you need to get the word out and really make sure that they know what the benefit is to them. 55% of companies actually right now have some sort of user awareness and adoption program. Not all of them have this controlled within IT, and where we see IT controlling this, we see some better response. Now, of course, when you get to customer as opposed to internal employees, there's some differences here. I mean, you've definitely got to coordinate. You want that internal IT marketing person to be involved, but you definitely have to coordinate with digital marketing and perhaps even the CMO itself, depending on how big the transformation is and how much the customer is affected. So when we asked organizations, what's really driving these user awareness and adoption initiatives, 57% said employees are more productive with the new technologies that are available. So it was really more of an employee play, but not too far down. 43% said, what we are running these user awareness and adoption initiatives because we want to improve the customer experience externally. So, there's various reasons why organizations use user awareness and adoption or deploy these types of programs, but they're really important if you want those transformation initiatives to be successful. We've identified 8 phases for that success. There is another webinar on our website where I go into all the details of this, but real important to identify who's going to be involved, and it has to be people from marketing, business, IT, a wide variety of people. Establish the business value, so why are you doing this? Set your baseline, what do our numbers look like today? Secure the budget for the marketing initiative, that is. So great, I want to do this user awareness and adoption initiative. I need some budget for it. I'm going to need to maybe do, some promotional activities. I may need to run some ads, depends on what you're doing. And then you get into the more actionable things like raising the preliminary awareness 3 to 6 months before the technology comes out. So more the just a catchy, quick, hey, this is coming kind of thing, raise that excitement and awareness. Then get into the more detailed awareness. Okay, great, this is coming. I've heard about this. What is it? Why is it coming? What's it going to do for me? And then you get to the training and boosting adoption and measurement, revise your marketing plan based on how successful it's been, what worked, what didn't, and then expand from there. All right, so wrapping up, I would recommend, of course, that you evaluate the business goals that are driving digital transformation. I think a lot of times we see companies just going into a project just for technology's sake. Work through the business case itself using the framework that we have here. So what are your goals? What are your catalysts? Maybe your goal or your catalyst is a little different than what we have on here. I mean, we've been able to vet these pretty well through research, but there certainly could be others. And what are your key enabling technologies, and how do you measure success? And also build in enough prep time. So remember, you've got that 6-month window, and that 6-month window really is about when you've got all the starting point. So you've built your business case, you've evaluated the technologies that you're going to use, and the partners. Now you need to go and do something with it. So make sure you build in that prep time. And specifically with customer engagement, I think it really requires some time spent with evaluation of contact center technologies, as well as the advanced options within the contact center that we talked about, AI, bots, Internet of Things. And then, of course, also to partner with corporate marketing. That doesn't necessarily always have to be the case if customer engagement isn't involved. If it's more of an internal reducing costs or something with employees, you might want to involve HR in that case. But you don't always need to involve corporate marketing, but in the case of customer engagement, you do. And I think that's important to plan ahead of time. And then, of course, don't forget that whole user awareness and adoption that we just talked about. It's definitely applies internally to employees rather, but even more important to customers. And then act, go to town. Remember that 6-month rule and show some some success. So for more information on this or other webcasts, if you want, obviously clients have access to all of this material. If you want specific cuts of data, there's a very large repository of about 130 some slides right now in the website portal on digital transformation. You have access to that. Simply go to our website, or if you have any questions, you can reach out to client services at the email here or using the phone number. Non-clients, we would love to have you as clients. Please contact Nemertes Sales. We'd be happy to talk to you about how we work with people. Certainly no high pressure or anything like that. We just really enjoy this work, and we enjoy helping companies, and we enjoy being able to share what we've learned and help you to be successful. Our next webinar is on November 7th, and that is the next generation security architecture, zero trust and defense in depth. You can see that my colleague Jonathan Johnson, the CEO of Nemertes Research, will be presenting that. But you really will learn about what zero trust is if you're an IT leader, and why you need to consider it and how to protect your own environment. For vendors, I think it's important to find out how to position your own products and services successfully to address this whole zero trust model. So with that, I thank you, and I will turn it back over to Salome to see if we have any questions. We have about 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Robin. I do have a couple of questions. The first one is it too soon to use some of the more advanced apps in the contact center? And then a follow-up to that, what kind of problems do companies have with them?
Is it too soon? Depends on how aggressive you are with your IT strategy. If you're a more conservative company, I would say it might be a little too soon to use some of these technologies in a more advanced way. Like if you're just going to use a bot very simply to provide some of the basic information that I talked about, I think that's pretty well established. But if you have grander visions there, it might be a little bit too soon, because there might be more integration work than you feel like handling right now. So it just kind of depends on what you're trying to do as to whether it's too soon or not, and what kind of technology expertise and vision that you have within the company. And what was the follow-up, Salome?
What kinds of problems do companies have with them?
Yeah, and I'm definitely I have seen some. I'd say the biggest problem is that they sort of do the opposite of what you're hoping they're going to do, which is make customers happy and improve experience. You end up getting really frustrated customers because they are asking questions and not getting the answers that they want, like to a bot, for example, or to natural language processing type of an application. So I think one of the biggest concerns is if you don't have, for lack of a better term, an omni-channel strategy. So if you have multiple channels in your contact center or in the way that customers can communicate with you, but once they get to a live human, that live human can't see the context of what they've been doing, that gets really, really frustrating. So, you might have all these great advanced apps in there, but, if they're not all streamlined and you have that context built in, that's going to be a problem. So I think those are probably, I guess another thing I would say that I've seen companies have issues with is just when you get to the more advanced applications, some of the privacy kind of concerns, like, okay, wait a minute, I didn't realize there was a sensor on my air conditioner, and all of a sudden someone's calling me, like, this is kind of creepy. What do they know about me? What are they measuring on me? So that kind of thing might be somewhat of an issue as well.
Mm-hmm. I have one more question here, which is, what are your suggestions if our business case is a good one, it'll improve customer experience, but I can't get it to show any financial gain?
Well, I would probably say it's not a great business case then. And I know that's tough, and I know that that's hard sometimes to build a business case if you're, like in collaboration, for example, if all you're showing is productivity increase, how do you put a number on that? We've been dealing with those kinds of questions for years. But if you really have a business case that you think is good because customer experience is going to increase, you've got to be able to show how do you know that? I mean, at the very minimum, you should be able to say, well, our CSAT scores are going to go up. Now, the problem there could be that maybe you're not measuring CSAT today, and so you can't really show an improvement, in which case you probably have to delay that rollout, see what your CSAT score is today, and then you can show improvement. But I would say that most of the customer experience business cases are very tied to some metric, whether it's CSAT very basically, or just simply sales, or lack of, okay, we're getting a lot of complaints right now. We have a new app that we think is really going to help with the customer complaints. Well, measure that. The only thing I could think of in a case like that is that you're not measuring things today, and you have to do that in order to be able to show that change tomorrow.
Okay. So with that, we will wrap up today's webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time and attention. As Robin said, you will receive an email after this webinar with a replay link to this session and a registration link for our next webinar, which is on November 7th, the Next Generation Security Architecture, Zero Trust, and Defense in Depth, which is presented by Nemertes CEO and founder, John Attille Johnson. If you're a client and would like to follow up with us, if you think of any more questions, please send an email to client-services@nemertes.com. If you're not a client, please send an email to research@nemertes.com or sales@nemertes.com. Thank you very much again for joining us, and that concludes this webinar.